Meeting will come to order. I should mention that Sandy is attending via Zoom today, so you can't see her, but we can see her on the monitor up there. First item on the agenda is a discussion of e-foils and what we think about having e-foils on the lake. Tom, you want to go ahead?
Sure. So the Lakes Committee took up this issue, I think it was in September of this last year, maybe earlier than that. They put together a subcommittee to research the issue, and then that subcommittee made recommendations to the General Lakes Committee, and they voted on it. Rather controversial issue. We received an outpouring of input from the community, and so they voted on two issues at their December meeting. The first issue was whether motorized kayaks and stand-up paddle boards should be allowed. This is a new trend with people going out to fish using a motorized kayak, which allows you to get around more. The kayaks, motorized kayaks and motorized stand-up paddle boards are typically limited to 3 to 4 to 5 miles per hour, so they're very low in speed. The recommendations of the Lakes Committee was a 7-2 vote in favor of allowing motorized kayaks. In the suggested motion that management put together, what we're recommending is that we have a hard limit of no more than 5 miles per hour on those kayaks. The motorized kayaks, motorized paddleboards, and to direct the Rules and Regulations Committee to develop regulations with the intent of the board to vote on these regulations in February. But they would be clearly stated that they are allowed at a maximum of 5 miles an hour. The second issue that was discussed and voted upon was that of e-foils. Now, e-foils, motorized surfboards, and so forth. I'm just going to characterize that as e-foils, so that'll be kind of my umbrella term. There's a lot of concern on this one. The vote on the Lakes Committee was a 5-4 split in favor of allowing e-foils. A lot of the concerns that we've heard from property owners were safety oriented. E-foils travel approximately 20 miles an hour. They can get to 30 miles an hour according to the research I did on the internet. Motorized surfboards can go a lot faster at 40 miles an hour. And given the limited size of our lakes, it appears to be a genuine concern. While we always respect the opinions of our joint advisory committees, they are advisory. We always respect them. We respect the work that they put into it. But in this case, management does not agree with the split ruling of the Lakes Committee, and we are recommending not allowing e-foils and motorized surfboards. Our regulations, once again, need work to address this issue. So we're making the recommendation, and I'm just going to read you the suggested motion. I make a motion prohibiting the use of e-foils and motorized surfboards on POA lakes. That's pretty straightforward and clear. As part of this motion, the Rules and Regulations Committee is directed to develop the appropriate regulation to reflect this prohibition, with the intent for the board to vote on these regulations at their February meeting. So I want to make it clear, the first sentence, it's prohibited. So it's not where we're kicking the can down the road to February. It's no, they're prohibited. Now let's write the code to match that, the regulations to match that. So, and once again, we received a huge amount of input from the community. I think it's really important to talk about due process because a number of property owners came to us and asked us to shorten the time frame, to quicken the pace, meaning let's decide on it in December, let's cut corners. We don't ever want to do that. We always want to, you know, this is an issue, well, 95% of the community is, based upon the comments we've received, is against it. There is the 5% that's for it, and we want to always make sure that we listen to both sides. We always encourage the board to listen to both sides. And also, while it's probably not likely, if the POA were to get sued on the matter, which I hope doesn't happen, if we were to short circuit the due process procedure, that would not go well for us. Potentially wouldn't go well. So we have to go through the whole thing. So while people were saying, let's short circuit it, let's get it over in December, no. We have to do it the right way. It takes a little bit of time, but let's do it the right way so that on the off chance if we were to get sued, it's gonna put us in a much better legal position. And we always have to listen to both sides, you know. On this issue, you might be on the 95%, but maybe on the next issue down the road, you might be on the 5%, and you're like, hey, nobody heard me, and you short-circuited it. So we always want to make sure we listen to both sides of the issue. So those are the recommendations. Once again, I thank the Lakes Committee for their work on this. They worked many months on this. And it's very rare that we recommend to go against what the Joint Advisory Committee came up with. But in this one, I from a safety and standpoint and the size of our lakes, there's a lot of different reasons that our property owners gave. I'm not going to list through all of them because it'd take way too long. But most of them centered on safety and size of the lake. And so if I'm missing any arguments that were really valid, I apologize, but I think those were the two key arguments, and they resonated well with the management team.
Okay, that being said, do we have any comments? Would you like to just go around the board, go around the table, and you want to start here?
Sure, be happy to. Yeah, very much a hot topic. What you mentioned as far as the 95 and 5%, I totally agree with. I personally think that there is potential safety issue. I mean, our lake, to the Loch Lomond being obviously the largest lake, is not a big lake. So, and they're already crowded. I also, like you had mentioned, don't like going against the committees. I was on the golf committee and chaired the golf committee for a number of years, so I know what that process is about, and do appreciate them, all the work they did on this. But I am very much not in favor of allowing e-foils on our lakes.
I concur. I'm not personally against e-foils. I think they would be a lot of fun, but as a member of this director, I have a responsibility to our membership, and almost everybody I've spoke to on this topic is against it, and for that reason I won't be in favor of supporting e-foils on the lakes.
So I agree also that this is not the time for e-foils. I think they look like a lot of fun. Doing some research, I know that there's some opinions about they're not personal watercraft. Google often confuses them with personal watercraft, and when you look at the definition, I think it's difficult. So even though we say there may not be a slippery slope, I think that there is a slippery slope, that they could open the door for not only them but for other personal watercraft, and I don't think we're ready for that. I'm not saying that down the road that this might be something, because it is a good thing for the environment. It's not near like boats, but I think I'm a swimmer. I'm not comfortable with them in the lake with myself and for others. But like you said, the boat, the registrations, you mentioned that kayaks and paddle boards and boats is up, and our lakes are small. They don't get any bigger. So I just think the traffic is a concern. And just like Jeff said, we are here to represent the members, and the members have spoken very clearly that this is not the time to entertain e-foils. So
Yeah, we've seen a little bit of this in the case of the e-bikes as well on the trails, and there's been a lot of discussion nationally about electric powered vehicles of any sort, whether it's on trails or now here on lakes. I agree with the board and the membership that this isn't the right time for this, although I do really like the green side of this, and I feel like a lot of the points that were made by Joshua Harrison are very valid, and I kind of feel like that the e-foil is actually catching the brunt of the pain of having wakeboarding on the lakes. I feel like that's the real issue with most of the safety and the damage on the lakes is the extreme wakes that are being created by the massive boats, and I wish we could roll back the clock and say no to those. As much as they're cool and they're fun, all the lakes are too small for that, and we only have a couple wake lakes. But being on the Rules and Regulation Board, it's probably too late to do anything about the wake world, but we should really take a cold hard look at wakeboarding as well. I think the consistent damage that brings and the danger, it far outweighs this single e-foil issue. And although I appreciate everyone kind of jumping on e-foils and getting after them, I'd like to see the same type of effort being placed towards wakeboarding because I feel like it's the most dangerous activity on our lakes by far. So I won't be voting in favor of the e-foils. I'll be voting in favor of prohibiting them, but I do want us to take a real look at wakeboarding in the future and try to decide if that's really something we want on our lakes here.
Okay, Sandy, do you want to weigh in?
Sure. So I've watched a lot of videos and I've done some research, and e-foils are evolving quickly. And so my concern is if they were to be approved now, we would not be able to unapprove them in the future when they're faster and more complicated. And so my concern is, like most people, is the safety issue, especially for the people that are swimming in the water. So I am not in favor of them.
Thank you.
Okay. I really appreciate the efforts that the Lakes Committee went through to work this out on the committees and their record. Even though I respect their recommendation, I can't honor it because I also went out and talked to a lot of other people. And a lot of us, we all have boats, quite a few, about a dozen of us, and we don't even go out on the lakes on weekends because it's too crowded. I can imagine as summer comes in, and if we had passed this, I think there would be chaos because we have BOBs that, even though they're run properly and all that, you can't control the individual. And those individuals may go out there and do something crazy for the excitement of it. It's the lakes are crowded as they are with all the boats that we have and all that. And I really enjoy sometimes to relax without looking for something else to interfere with me personally. But all the people I talked to, they were not in favor of this. And I have to honor that. Thank you.
I'd like to make a couple of just general comments. First is that I'm kind of heartened by the fact that we have so much feedback from our community. The worst thing that I would be fearful of as a board member would be apathy. So we're in a vibrant community that is involved and cares about our community. That's wonderful. The second thing, comment of a general nature, is that I appreciate the time that we've taken on this. Frankly, that's helped me to grow my understanding and opinion on this issue. So as you said, Tom, rather than rushing this and having a knee-jerk reaction, to be able to really take time to look at it was helpful. I've done like all of you. I've researched it best I can. We've had voluminous emails from the community. We've looked at YouTube videos and everything else, so I think that's been very helpful. For me, what it came down to was something from my background. I'm a lifetime motorcyclist, A lifetime ago in California, I used to race motocross and desert bikes and then road bikes as well. But one of the things that I learned as a motorcyclist is that it was really not fun and really dangerous, and I tried to avoid riding in urban areas, in city streets. It's something different when you're out in a nice ride in a country road, but in an urban environment, the issue is people can't see you. And I was always, and that was something that most motorcyclists would probably affirm, is that you are going to be at risk just because they don't see you. And you have to be as defensive as possible. And that is with defined lanes, with stoplights, with stop signs, and clearly demarked areas where you're going to ride. So now I look at it through that lens, and I look at, okay, we're in a small lake, there are no stop signs, there are no predefined lanes, and we have a interesting, and I love the technology, an interesting craft that can do double digits currently and probably will only increase in that. And I think that there's a real danger there because of the safety issue, very similar to what my experience is with a lifetime of riding motorcycles. So I appreciate the Lakes Committee. We all serve as liaisons to different JACs, and I know that they took this seriously. But as Tom had mentioned, this is an advisory to us, and we've taken the time. And for me, I don't think it is an appropriate use of our lakes. I'll be voting no.
Boy, it's really hard being the last guy in the lane. But first of all, I want to make sure that the Lakes Committee understands that we respect them a lot. In other situations that I'm in, it's hard to be, for the next voting spot, to disregard whatever was recommended. Believe me, it's hard. But I believe in listening to the community. I am so glad we got all that information, or that input from people, because it's a tough decision. It really is. Again, size of the lake, safety, swimmers. Now, I'm not a swimmer, but I respect swimmers. My dad's version of teaching you to swim was throw you over the side of the boat, so therefore I don't. But that was dangerous in its own right, throwing you over the side of the boat. But at any rate, we listened, folks. And as the Rules and Regs chair, I love this kind of stuff. So we're going to work really hard, right, Jason and Mike and Jan, everybody here, to make this fair and clear. Very as clear as you can make a rule or reg. That's hard. But that's why we have this guy.
That's what Doug.
Yeah. So anyway, no, I'm not in favor of this.
Okay. I guess there's not really much more that can be said. I agree with a lot of just all the points that you've made. Mike, particularly when he brings up the idea about wake boats, and I know that's revisiting something, but it's a very small number, and this e-foil issue has made us look at our policies and our community and what's right for us. And the community has spoken. I'm not an adrenaline junkie. I don't do those things. I'm more one, I just sit back and enjoy what I see. And so you won't find me out there on a bike going swooping down the mountain. You won't find me out on the lake going zipping around or wakeboarding or anything like that. But you might find me on the shore just watching everybody else. But anyway, like I said, the Lakes Committee put in quite a bit of time on this, and they were very divided. 5-4 is not definitive. On the other issue, it was 7-2. But 5-4 means that they're asking us to make the decision. And it looks like we have made that decision. I will not be voting in favor of it, and in the future, Mike, I think we're gonna have to have a little bit of a discussion about the wakeboards and the future of Bella Vista, because the use of our lakes, as Jerry says, you get to a weekend and people avoid it. You know, it's not fun. So we want everybody to be able to use the amenities. And that means some people probably don't get to do it exactly the way they want. But that being said, I'm going to vote against it. And Tom, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Just a couple more comments. So the board doesn't vote today. This is the work session. Next week, next Thursday at 6 p.m. is the regular meeting. That's when a vote would take place. We don't want to shortchange it once again because we want to follow due process. Just another couple comments. No e-foils or motorized surfboards have been registered. Now, normally what we try and do is get the lakes regulations finalized in December of every year, so that when registrations start in January, February, so forth, that we're handing out the most current copy. What we're gonna have to do in this case is, because they won't be finalized until February, what we'll do is we'll mail out anybody that has registered in their vessel, not e-foils, because we're not allowing those, but anybody that has registered their boat, their kayak or something like that in January, February, we'll have to mail it out. So it's a little bit, it'll be laborious, but it's the only way we can do it. We do need to make sure, and this is going to be a task for the rules and regs, we're going to make the rules really clear to make it easy on the lake rangers to understand what needs to be done, how to enforce, so forth. And last thing is, one of our, someone mentioned about different types of stuff out there and everything. We anticipate that we're probably going to have to take this issue up every couple of years, because there's going to be new toys coming up. I mean, a couple of years ago, we never even heard of an e-foil. 2 years from now, there will be something else crazy out there. And so we're going to have to constantly take these matters up and so forth. So we'll do our best to create really good regulations, but realistically, we're going to have to address something else a couple of years from now and take that matter up. So hopefully we'll see this many people at next week's meeting. So it's always member participation is great. So we'll move on to the next issue.
We'll move on to the next issue.
Next issue is
I just want to make one comment about the first part. I assume we will also be voting on the kayak.
Yes, both of those will be taken up.
So just from an understanding, why do you want to motor on a stand-up paddleboard? I understand the kayak because I see them fishing often, but why on the kayak, on the paddleboard? Well, that's what we're saying.
Well, it's like a trolling motor. I think they're still using
subs.
it. I think it just makes it easier to get around. I think the non-objection was simply because it only goes 5 miles an hour, and we'd want to make sure that the regulation stipulates 5 miles an hour. I own a stand-up paddleboard. You can't go far without running out of gas pretty fast. So a little assist, I wouldn't be a bad idea. Mine's not assisted or anything. I don't have any interest in purchasing one, but.
Hey, Jackie. Yeah. I do have, one of my paddle boards is very large, and it is built to fish from. I don't have a motor on it, but just as you can fish from kayaks, you can also fish from this particular paddleboard.
That's what I was asking, is that I have one that you can actually put a seat on, but I'm not balanced enough to be able to cast and all that stuff on my stand-up paddleboard, but maybe I was curious if that's people really do fish from those. So if so, I understand it.
The particular paddleboard I'm talking about is huge. You don't even need balance to stay on it.
Great.
My kind of paddleboard.
Isn't that called a raft?
Or a boat.
Exactly.
Nope, it's still a paddleboard.
Okay, next up, each year, the board votes in January on the corporate officers for the POA. No change from prior year. We're recommending Jessica McCurry as our corporate secretary, Beth as our treasurer, Doug as our vice president, and myself as the president. This is required by, we do this every year, it's required by our regulations. At our last meeting, there was an approval of a septic system traversing common property. A question came up regarding how many have been done over the last several years. So Jessica got together with Aaron. Aaron works in the MAC department, and they put together this list of 9 properties that have had septic issues since 2019. You'll see that 5 of them are traversing, and 4 of them were failures where they installed the septic system on common property. So you see that 9 out of 16,000 homes, you know, it's not that many. It's about 2 a year at this time. So there's the information you asked for. And that's everything I had to go over with the board.
Okay, that would bring us to the open forum. We have some people who have signed up to speak. I don't know what their topic is. Bob Wenzel would like to speak to personal watercraft.
Yeah, I'm Bob Wenzel. I've been on the forum of Rich Lane. Previously, I lived on Rock Roman. I was on the Lakes Committee for 2 terms, chairman 1. Worked part-time at Marina for 7 years. So I'm pretty familiar with the lakes. I really came here to kind of congratulate. I moved here 31 years ago. Personal watercraft were allowed on the lakes, and somebody had some real foresight. Somebody had some real foresight to say we don't want these on these small lakes, because they weren't very popular back then. So you kind of took away my reason for talking, because this board had the foresight also to say our lakes aren't big enough for them. And so I'll talk about, you said, probably bring up other things. I think, I call it personal watercraft, even though you call them e-foil. They are personal watercraft as described by the state. So I think if you stick with that, keeping personal watercraft off, you might avoid future deal. If you tried to put like the electric in and not gas, I think you'd be asking for problems. The other point I was going to make is that electric watercraft, I think, would be more dangerous than motorized, because you don't know they're there. The lake's full of kayaks now, and electrics, they go 30, 40 miles an hour, running around, and you don't know they're there. I think you're paddling your kayak and you decide to turn in the cove, there may be somebody trying to pass you that you haven't heard. But anyway, thank you for what you did today. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Next signed in, Bonnie Dove, personal watercraft.
I think my comments are Hi, I'm Bonnie Dove, 7 Wembley Circle, and I sent a message to the board requesting they look at the video, which they did, and I thank you for your due diligence and the decision you came to tonight. I do have one question. I was at the Lake Committee, and it was said that Joshua Harrison is using his e-foil on the lake. This was verified by his neighbor, Mike Helby, who said he witnessed Harrison operating his e-foil on the lake, Lake Loman, okay. And I don't quite understand how this can happen, considering we haven't passed it at all. I'm sure he won't be on the lake this week. But anyway, maybe that could be looked into, and maybe there's some confusion with people that do own e-foils that, you know, they can use it at this point in time till we make a decision. I don't know. It's a question for the board. I don't understand. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list, Chris Rose.
I'm Chris Rose. I live at 7 Barra Lane. I sent you all an email back in, seems like a long time ago, August or September, when this issue first came out against e-foils. I want to say thank you. I appreciate your candidness, and I appreciate the fact that you went around the table and each expressed your thoughts as to why you feel the way you do about e-foils. So you listened, and that's great. I can't say thank you enough. So, Happy New Year.
Thank you. And the last on the list is Suzanne Saltz.
Good morning. I live at 15 Marykirk Lane on Loch Lomond. Just want to say thank you so much for your due diligence and listening to our concerns. And interesting you brought up about the wake setter boats, and in that when we moved in, we had a floating dock. That's what came with our home. And within 5 years, we had to change it out to a standing dock, because with our boat docked, with the new wake setter boats coming out, it kept breaking off ties off our boat. And as a result, and now you see our lake, when we first moved in, it was about fishing and enjoying kayaking. People actually do swim on Loch Lomond. I have seen it. And now you can't really go out and enjoy a weekend quietly on your pontoon boat, because there are people using wake setters to go around the lake. And it's caused a lot of issues for a lot of homeowners when it comes to their seawall, which we had to upgrade from wood to block because of it. Now, of course, these are all improvements that are part of life, but it is something to consider. And I appreciate what you have done with the e-foils and keeping it at bay while we still learn what the future holds with them. But a good point was made about electric. And when you're on the lake, we have kayaks also. We stay close to shore, because you get out in the middle, you kind of get lost at Loch Lomond, even though it is not that large of a lake. Now imagine having something electric, which we have seen come past our dock, fly on by, and you have no warning that it's there until it's right upon you. So just keeping that in mind as we look to the future as to what is allowed on our lakes. Once again, there's Beaver Lake. It's not that far away, which is a lot larger and can handle these kind of toys. Thank you.
Jessica, I believe you have one submission to read. 3? Okay. Jessica only gets 3 minutes to read also.
You're good.
Okay. Our lakes aren't large enough to accommodate additional motorized traffic. The e-foils come with its own safety concerns, along with creating a slippery slope to allowing other forms of personal watercraft, such as jet ski, on BV lakes. The people of Bella Vista, by and large, do not want PWC on our lakes. This email is from Larry McGraw. Justification for revised language of allowing e-foils and removing the catch-all ban. Assumptions of original PWC ban. With no known reasoning left behind, the assumed intent behind the personal watercraft ban on POA lakes is due to nuisance and safety. Nuisance, noisy, Safety, high speed, small lakes often chases wakes and other craft. The PWC terminology used by the POA was originally intended to refer to the original type of vessel known as jet skis, wave runners, and sea-doos. Support the intent behind the existing policy for craft originally intended. I agree, jet skis, wave runners, sea-doos are not welcome due to the same reasons listed above. They are loud and distracting. They are dangerous, accounting for over 600 deaths in 2022. The new generation of PWCs shouldn't be lumped together and should not be banned by default just because the Coast Guard calls them PWCs. The Coast Guard defines these new vessels as PWCs for regulatory purposes, but that should not be what determines the POA allows use on lakes. That is the choice of the POA. The Coast Guard classification just regulates use, registration, PFD, signaling, and lighting. The new generation of PWCs have varying nuisance and safety profiles and should each be considered. Governing principle, POA regulations to banned activities should have an overwhelmingly clear and justifiable reasoning. In the absence of clear and justifiable reasoning, default should be to allow use. Acknowledge that no one on the POA Lakes Committee or Board is a boating safety expert and is using their own experiences and judgment and Google skills. Likewise, each person has a different perspective on what is a nuisance. Decisions to restrict should require a super majority rather than a simple majority to protect the interest of the minority and create a welcoming community. Judgment of nuisance and safety must be made within context of what is already specifically allowed by the POA. Activities explicitly allowed have nuisance and safety concerns to some members, yet remain allowed. Swimming, discouraged from wake areas and regulations, but allowed everywhere. Wakeboarding and surfing and skiing, large impact to the navigation of the lake by other boats, shorelines, results in low-profile swimmers, requires an orange flag to signal to other boats, but typically drive in straight lines with riders controlling their own movement. Tubing, large impact to navigation of the lake by other. Facts shown why e-foil boards should not be banned on Loch Lomond. Oh, I'm sorry. I should have stated this one. That last email I just read was from Rob Montgomery. Facts showing why e-foil boards should not be banned on Loch Lomond. Number one, personal watercraft has well understood specific definition. Every resident's boat on the lake is a watercraft and is also personally owned and used, but not publicly owned. But nobody calls them personal watercraft because everyone understands PWCs to refer to only one specific type of watercraft. Motorcycle like jet skis and wave runners. A jet-propelled boat ridden like a motorcycle, a jet-propelled boat ridden like a motorcycle. Number two, e-foil boards have none of the characteristics that make PWCs dangerous. Off-power steering. The primary characteristic of PWCs that make them more dangerous than the power boats is that PWCs cannot steer if the operator cuts power in anticipation of danger ahead. That is because PWCs steer by directing a jet of water, which jet is zero when power is cut, and therefore steerability is lost at the most crucial times when facing a collision. By contrast, the steering of an e-foil is unaffected by loss of power because the foil is a control surface that is always in the water, like a boat's rudder. Unlike a PWC, the foil provides the operator of an e-foil continuous and uninterrupted directional control whenever there is forward speed, like a boat's rudder, regardless of whether there is any motor power. Weight. A PWC can weigh up to 1,200 pounds. 850 pounds is the average PWC weight. By contrast, the e-foil boards weigh only 60 pounds, including battery, and have very little momentum. As a grandfather, I still carry mine into the water myself. Speed. PWCs are high-speed watercraft powered by internal combustion engines, and most PWC models can reach 70 miles per hour. By contrast, an e-foil board is battery operated and goes 8 miles to 18 miles per hour. Unlike PWCs, an e-foil board drops down into the water when the rider falls, causing a huge increase in drag compared to hydrofoiling, and so quickly loses what little momentum it had. Unlike powerboats and PWCs, e-foil boards cannot be operated drunk. Powerboats and often do carry alcoholic beverages, with about 16% of boating accidents being caused by that. By contrast, a drunk person can't e-foil at all. E-foil boarding is an advanced balancing sport that inherently requires sobriety, no enforcement required. That was from Joshua Harrison.
Okay, comments or response to the questions, Tom?
So if you haven't been to a board meeting previously, members come up, they make their comments, and then after it's all done, then we answer some questions and so forth. It's not a dialogue, and this, our setup is very similar to how the city does it, to a certain extent. First of all, thank everybody for making comments. Did want to comment, make the note that it's a 3-minute limit, and that includes if you email yours in. So if you email yours in and it's really long, that's why Jessica starts the timer. The comment about the U.S. Coast Guard, we are planning on using the U.S. Coast Guard regulation as our starting point for developing our regulations. So that was a really good comment, and we were already going to do that, but we'll give you all the credit for that idea. There was a question about why the e-foil was on last year. Our regulations didn't ban e-foils explicitly last year. That's why the Lakes Committee took it up. We did allow them to register their vessel last year, their e-foil last year, because there was no banning on it at that time. They have not registered this year because we were waiting for the board to make a determination. So it was a gray area last year. We didn't know what to do. I think it originally came from the lake rangers, came to us and said, what do we do? Are these allowed, not allowed? What do we know? So that was the impetus at the very beginning of, we got to get this cleaned up because our current regulations don't address this. I agree with the comment. Beaver Lake is very close. It gives people an alternative. Regarding the comment about a supermajority vote from the board, it appears that if the board members vote the way they've indicated today, now they have every right to change their mind between now and next Thursday, we would be well past the supermajority and be unanimous. I really like the comments that people said about the board listening to the community. The board puts a lot of effort into being transparent and listening, and you can see that today. The process worked. They listened, they responded, they were transparent in their comments, that's all I had to cover. Hopefully I didn't miss anything.
Hopefully. That should conclude our business today, and next week we will vote on a couple issues, corporate officers being one of them. I'm sure that's a real hot topic. And is there anything else? The public forum has passed. I'm sorry.
Just, we want to thank you. The flag tires here in Bella Vista,
We appreciate it.
We appreciate your work and your objectivity, and obviously everybody did their own research, listened to the community. We appreciate the Lakes Committee. They also had a tough decision. We know they did a lot of work, and we appreciate them too. So thank you all very much.
Thank you for saying that. Okay, that'll bring our meeting to a close. See you next week.
Yes.